Okay, 3, 2, 1.
And good afternoon, everybody. Well, when I last spoke to you, I didn't think I'd be speaking to you quite this quickly again, but obviously quite a lot has been happening over the weekend. And I had a quick chat with Jacquie this morning, and she says she's got enough information prior to legislation on Wednesday, I think it is. I think there's enough in the public domain already, enough instruction that really we wanted to jump straight on and make sure that you get the information firsthand. I know it's available from multiple sources, but the good advantage of having Jacquie with us today is that she gets in touch with all those multiple sources. Plus, she's got a bit of inside information and a few people she can call. And hopefully today, Jacquie, you are going to be able to tell us everything.
Well, yes, I hope so. Good afternoon, all. Let me just share my screen, and then we will start to be with you in just 1 second. Okay, so as you are all aware, the Prime Minister announced on Saturday that England and the country is going into a lockdown. Now, I want to talk about what's going to happen with the devolved administrations throughout and later on, because I have got a bit of information about it. But basically, as you're all aware, from the first thing Thursday morning, we are all in a lockdown again. And what's happened is that the job support scheme that we were talking about for the last 2 Fridays has now gone on hold, and we've gone back into the CJRS, the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, but they've called it the Extended Job Retention Scheme. So it's ECJRS now, but basically we're back where we were in August, but I'll explain exactly what's happening. So first of all, what does the scheme cover? Basically, it takes us back to July, where the employees work flexibly. So we can work, we cannot work. It's a mixture of things. Actually, that should say August. It says July, but it is actually August. And I'll explain why in a moment. So the employer will pay for worked hours if there are any. So this is for those who are closed and those who are open. So those of you who were with us for the job support scheme and have seen my slides on that will know that the scheme still applies to those who are working full-time, working part-time, not working or whatever. But what's changed between this and the job support scheme is that the percentages that the government is paying have gone back up to 80%, which brings us back into flexible CJRS. So what is going to happen is that the government is now going to pay 80% of non-worked hours based on usual hours worked. Now, we've been through this before. You should by now have your usual hours worked. We know I've spoken to a couple of members already this morning, and we've been talking about 0 hours contracts and flexible working. The calculations are exactly the same. The only thing we haven't had confirmation of yet is the time period over which the normal hours need to be calculated. And I hope that's going to come out in the next day or so as more details come up. But at the moment, it's as we were in July and August. Now, as per August, the employer is going to pay their own NICs and pension contributions. So the funding, as it was in August, is for the non-worked hours only. Now, it's a smooth continuation on from the end of the original CJRS, which finished on the 31st, i.e. Saturday. So we're straight into that. There is no break. The job support scheme is no longer valid as of the 1st of November. That's been delayed until whenever the lockdown ends and will then be reimposed or reintroduced at that stage. So it continues a smooth transition. Now, remember, in October, employers had to pay 20% of the non-worked hours and the government paid 60%. So as far as the employee is concerned, they are still getting 80% of their non-worked hours. The difference is that government has gone back to funding 80% of the non-worked hours rather than the 60%, with the employer making up the 20%, which has happened recently. So the employee will be in exactly the same situation they've been in for the last however many months since we went into lockdown. But the employer will have to pay no contributions over and above the NICs and the pension contributions. Now, it's going to remain open until December. Now, at the moment, the lockdown is due to end, I believe, on the 2nd of December. but we don't know what's going to happen. There's been some more news coming out, various sources, government sources and various other people saying that they think it will have to go on past the 2nd of December. It obviously depends on what's going to happen to the number of infections and how the situation is. And I would assume that if lockdown is extended, then this scheme will be extended as well. Now, it looks as though what is going to happen is that we are going to be going in and out of lockdown, and the government's going to be funding different things at different times. So we're really going to have to keep our minds on top of this, because we could be actually changing from month to month with our calculations. So if we thought the early stages of coronavirus were complex, I did say a while ago it's getting worse, and I think, you know, we've really got to keep on our toes. The funds are still available up front for the except for the changeover period. Now, obviously, the legislation for the 80%, as Garry said, has got to go to Parliament. We think it's going on Wednesday, ready to be confirmed for first thing Thursday morning when the lockdown starts. But the scheme has been backdated to the 1st of November. So once government approves the 80%, then it will be backdated to the 1st of November. Once the portal is open, you will be able to apply up front for the funding like we have before. I think it's been up to about 3 weeks before. The JSS, remember, was in arrears. You had to do your RTI and then you claim the money back. Again, as I understand it, you can apply for funds up front and in advance. So that should help the cash flow situation. Now, the cap on funding is exactly the same as the £2,500 we spoke about previously. And there is no need for an employee to have been previously furloughed. So this is a slightly different change. No need for them to have been furloughed. And that's because you could have taken on someone while we were open in the summer, and now you're having to furlough them because of lockdown. So the previous furlough dates have now gone, and this time the government has said that employers can top up the wages at their own expense if they wish. So this is topping up the 20% of the non-worked hours. This is the same as the JSS, the job support scheme. So they can top it up if they want to. So that's basically the scheme. There's nothing new there. It's just a slight movement around of dates and things. So let's have a quick look at the change to business grants, because there are some business grants available. Now, in England, the rateable value, if your rateable value of your premises are less than £15,000, the grant that you can apply for is now 1334 per month, or £667 per 2 weeks. Now that has gone up from £934, which it was going to be on the job support scheme. So if your rateable value is between £15,000 and £51,000, the grant is £2,000 per month. That's gone up from £1,400 as announced under job support scheme. And if your rateable value is over £51,000, the grant is going to be £3,000 per month. Or, sorry, some typos there. I did this quite quickly this morning. Or £1,500 for 2 weeks, which has gone up from £2,100. Under JSS, there were some extra funding of up to £3,000 for hospitality. I'm still not sure whether that is still going to be available. So as soon as I have some information, I'll let you know on that. It is payable through the local authorities. So although it says this is a grant of up to, I still think it's going to be up to local authorities to decide how they're going to apportion this grant. Now, I did read something on the HMRC website this morning. I was looking to see if I can find it on my other screen here. That says the funding to local authorities is going to be something like £20 per head of residents in the area. So that's how they're working out the grant. So whether or not your clients or you will get that amount remains to be seen. Yes, it does say grants of worth up to £3,000 under the local restriction support grant. And also £1.1 billion is being given to local authorities, distributed on the basis of £20 per head for one-off payments to enable them to support businesses more broadly. So there are going to be some extra grants available at the discretion of the local authority. So again, it's still early days and just waiting. It's all on the gov.uk website. So if you want to have a look it up, then please do. Oh, sorry. Sorry, my screen has gone slightly. Right. The devolved administrations will receive funds that they can use to establish similar schemes. So these figures won't relate to the devolved administrations. You'll have to, well, you or we will look up and see what the situation is, but there will be grants available, but the government will send this out to the devolved administrations and they will then decide how they're actually going to allocate those out. A few other points that came out in there. The mortgage holiday scheme was due to end at the end of this month. That's now been extended for a period of up to 6 months. Now, if you already have or know someone who has a payment scheme, a holiday period for payments off your mortgage, then you can extend it up to 6 months. But for anyone who now is in a situation where they're going to need to apply for this, then you can apply for a full 6 months holiday payment on your mortgage. And there is some more information coming out from the FCA on this on Monday, as we understand it. So we'll look and see if we've got, so due to come out today, I think. No news yet on self-employment grants. We don't know at the moment under the JSS, they're 40% of profits. That may go up to 80%, but I haven't seen anything coming out yet. So we'll watch this space for the self-employment grants. And we're still awaiting details for what's happening for directors and contractors. Remember, sometimes that we haven't really spoken much about contractors, but these are people who would perhaps fall under, say, IR35, where the job that they're doing, they may be self-employed or limited companies providing a service or a supply of services, but they should be treated as workers for PAYE and NIC. So we don't yet know what's happening about those, and we don't yet know what's happening about the sole directors. A director who is employed by a company full-time is as any other employee. So we're talking here about the sole directors. Not sure about that. And I haven't heard anything yet about what's going to happen about previously laid off workers. Now, we've all read the news and we all know that a lot of redundancies have happened in the last couple of weeks because the job support scheme wasn't allowing you to be made redundant during the period of that. A lot of people have been laid off. There are certain areas in the country which we know have been decimated by massive close downs. I haven't seen anything about what's happening because if you remember when this whole thing started in March, anyone who had been made redundant already was allowed to be taken back into work and furloughed on the scheme. I haven't seen anything yet about whether that is actually going to happen this time. Now, what I've picked up from one of the newspapers online, literally 10 minutes before I came online, is that, as we all know, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland have, over the last couple of weeks, had a much tighter shutdown than we have here in England. And I know that the governments were applying, particularly in Scotland and Wales, were applying to the UK Parliament to increase the rate of funding so that they were able to pay their close down 80%. And that was turned down. So they were only getting the equivalent of 60% that they could get paid. And under the jobs, but now under the lockdown, they will get the full 80%. However, the controversy that's going on at the moment in the online, on the social media and in the newspapers that I've read online within the last hour or so, is that the governments are saying that if they wish to close, as Wales did, complete lockdown for 2 weeks, when England is not locked down, what's going to happen about their funding? So we need to watch the space on this one, because I think there's going to be an awful lot of discussion going on about that at the moment. And so that's the information that I've got for you. Let me stop sharing my screen so I can see what's happening about, oh, lots of questions coming in. Right.
Yeah, we've got one here from Helen at Adder Bookkeeping. Do we know what employees need to have been, sorry, when, she's corrected herself, when employees need to have been added to the payroll, e.g. new starter in September, October, can they be furloughed? It's midnight on the 31st, isn't it?
Midnight on the, no, it's midnight on the 30th. It's 23:29 on the 30th of October, which was Friday night. Now,
Wow.
I was talking to Chrissy Applin about this morning. We were having a chat about some of the questions that she put up on Friday, and we were discussing this. And she was saying that she did her RTI for new staff on the 29th, which was Thursday. If you had left your RTI until the 31st, Saturday, and you have taken somebody new on in October, they are not going to qualify for this extended scheme. The RTI had to be in by midnight on the 30th, at the end of the 30th, so 23:29. Now, I'm not sure what's going to happen about that, because the new scheme doesn't officially start until the 1st of November, which was Sunday morning. But the announcement was made on the 31st, so that's the Saturday. So that's why I think they've backdated it, because every other announcement has been dated from the time the announcement was made, or the midnight before. So that's why I think we've lost the 31st. So if you have someone, the trouble is, because this was only announced on the 31st, it was already too late when the Prime Minister announced this and the details came out for you to get that RTI in on time for any new staff taken on in October to benefit. So we will see.
No, just to clear up the ones off, we've got a couple off Facebook.
Yeah.
So, Matt Reynolds, how does this now affect the return to work scheme with the £1,000 for each employee if they have a job between October and January? Because now they need to continue being furloughed.
Well, they are still employed and they are still being furloughed. And at the moment, we're only going up to the 2nd of December. At the moment, I would say that's still valid. That if you keep them on to the 31st of January, you're okay. But of course, we're back in furlough now. So I think, and it is only my thought, that if people are going to be made redundant through this, the furlough scheme should still cover their redundancy while they're working whatever redundancy notice. So therefore, you're not going to get the job bonus at the end. But if you're keeping them on to the 31st of January, then I think you will still get the bonus, regardless of how long this furlough goes on for. But again, sorry, I don't have any other questions, any other answers on that, but we will let you know as soon as we know. Sarah said, Jackie, if you are a PAYE director and did not claim furlough in Scheme 1 or Scheme 2, can you claim furlough this time? Yes, you can, because you don't have to have been furloughed before, because it may very well be that in the early days, some businesses were keeping working. I'm thinking of, I mean, the particular area that I'm thinking of is Crawley, which is near to Gatwick, because over the past couple of months, so many people have been laid off at Gatwick that a lot more local businesses have had to go into close lockdown and shut up shop for part of the week. So there will be people who are involved in furlough this time that weren't furloughed before. That's absolutely fine. And can I just come back? Sunita just put up a question that I would have mentioned. If an employee left on the 31st October, can the company reinstate the employee and put them back on furlough? The answer is, Sunita, I don't know yet. I mentioned this to Garry before because it's one of the big questions that hasn't yet been covered. When we started this in March, anyone who had already been laid off was allowed to be taken back on and furloughed from the date. My gut reaction is I think they should be allowed to, but we haven't heard anything yet. So I'm hoping by the time we come back on Friday for you, we will have some more detail on this, because this will have gone through Parliament and we should know where we are. Okay.
Faye, always a good supply of questions. Hi, Faye here from Wales. Can someone who went on maternity leave in October 20 come off maternity leave and go back into furlough? The maternity funding in advance is so far behind the employer is struggling to pay the maternity pay.
Well, maternity pay can be reclaimed because you can still claim all your maternity pay back, because that's outside the furlough scheme. The problem that you have got if you bring them back from maternity leave is that if this only lasts for a month, they then cannot go back onto maternity leave. So you're going to have to keep them on the system. It's a very good question. I'm not sure I've got the answer to it yet, but my gut reaction is no, because you can't come off of maternity leave and then go back on. And of course, what you're getting is you're getting 6 weeks at the 90% of your average weekly earnings, and then you drop down to basic SMP, and I can't remember, it's 170 something. It's not very much, I know, and it's going to be a lot less than you would get on an 80% furlough. But if the furlough scheme stops,
I think you need to look at the bigger picture as how else it affects you and when you have to come back to work and everything that you have to do. I mean, maternity leave is quite detailed, isn't it? Got to be careful.
Yeah, and Helen's come back and said, surely if you're on maternity leave, you have to be available for work. I'm not sure I can't remember my maternity rules. It's a long time since I've looked at it, but I think I'll find out a bit about maternity and come back to you hopefully with that on Friday. I'll make a note for Friday.
Judith has said, can new staff still be furloughed who have never been before?
Yes, as long as they've had an RTI in by the 30th of October, they can be furloughed. I think I've missed one here from Jane.
Jane?
Hi, yes, up the top. Hi, Jackie. Thank you for your help. I have a pub client with an employee on a 0 hours contract, and in April, he decided not to furlough her, although he didn't have any work for her either. She's now questioning whether she should have been on furlough. Now, we did talk about this as to once we gone into flexible furlough as to whether 0 hours contracts should still be furloughed or whether it goes back to the original work. And if you haven't got any work from them, you don't pay them. And we had a lot of discussions, and I'm not sure we ever came up with a correct answer. So again, I think I will need to come back to you on that one, Jane. So it's 0 hours and furlough. Judith says, can you staff have been furloughed? Yes, they can.
Mary, I think you've actually covered this. I mean, hi, can you advise on what's happening with the furlough grant bonus that was due to be paid in February?
I haven't heard anything yet, but I think it's still there, and then they haven't announced any changes. So the fact, I mean, at the moment, the government wants to make this a short-term break until the 2nd of December, and then we will go. The idea at the moment is if everything works as it should do, we'll be back on the job support scheme, and then you're into job support scheme, as we announced 2 weeks ago, and the job retention bonus will still work. So I think at the moment, it's still going to work. What happens if this lockdown, as someone said it might do, sort of go in and out of the system until early spring? I have no idea what's going to happen. We'll obviously keep you up to date as soon as you've got some information.
Yeah, I think it's difficult at the moment. It's very hard to find two people with the same idea about this.
Yeah.
When it's going to start, finish, or anything else. So we keep on there. Sarah Douglas says it would be great if ICB could send out the presentation. I mean, Jackie puts all her presentations onto the hub. We will send something out to say that it is available.
Yeah.
And I must say, Jackie's done this in absolutely no time whatsoever this morning. So she did mention about the few literals that had crept in. Really, yeah, judging by the speed and actually judging by some of the spelling that you people have got in your questions, you know exactly where she's coming from.
Yeah, sorry, not completely proofread. Yeah. It's amazing because I hate proofreading my work, as those who know me know, and I'm not a good proofreader, and I swear there weren't any mistakes in that this morning. However, very minor point.
I'm proofreading through something I read, and instead of 1, I had an exclamation mark. So instead of 14, it was exclamation mark 4. And June kept saying, "Read it again," and I looked at it. I couldn't see it. That's pointed out in the end. I said, "Yeah, but that's not what I wrote." So I was reading what I thought I'd written. Yeah,
I know we all do, and I have certain colleagues that I work with on a regular basis that sort of do things with what I write, and they say they can always tell when I get tired. I hit a wall, and my spelling goes completely AWOL, and typing goes completely AWOL. Right. Barry said, for those who have not been furloughed as previously, what date would they have to have had an RTI submission? The Now, the date was the 30th of October. So if you took someone on at the beginning of October and you have not put an RTI in by the midnight on the 30th, they are not eligible for the new scheme. Now, for someone, if a submission has not yet been made for the period to the 5th of November and they have new employees, would they not qualify? At the moment, no, this is exactly the same as happened in March. The government makes an announce, it sets a deadline. It did change the deadline in March. They extended it on from, I think, the 28th of February through to a couple of weeks after to allow that period. Whether they will do that or not, I don't know. At the moment, on the HMRC on gov.uk, it definitely says 23:59 on the 30th of October.
Jill has said ECJRS, is it just for England or is Wales included?
No, I think it's Wales. It's the whole of the country.
Because,
yeah, the whole of the country's gone into lockdown. So the issue with Wales and Scotland as well is when Wales shut down for the 2 weeks, I think you're just coming out of that, aren't you? That you didn't get the full 80%. And that's the thing. If I said earlier, there's a lot of controversy flying around the web today about the situation for those who decided to do the shutdown. I can't make any comment on that. It is what it is, unfortunately.
One from Terry Ram.
Yeah. This is the impact of the bonus.
Yeah, carry on.
This is the bonus, because to get the bonus, they have to have had a minimum income of £520 per month from November through to January. So again, we haven't heard anything about the bonus scheme. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't know.
Patani
yeah.
said, are business grants available to all businesses or only those who are closed?
No, I think it's all businesses, because a vast majority of businesses will be closing down now. Certainly if you're into, so shops will be those that are available for necessary supplies. So small shops have had to close, hairdressers, leisure centres, all of those are closed. And I think you probably could still apply, but I think the regulations that apply to applying for these grants and anything is exactly the same probably as it was in the first one. So again, I think we're going to end up with an awful lot of questions that I'm going to have to go away and try and answer for Friday for you.
And we will be coming back, don't worry, we will be around at very least on Friday when thank furlough or thank extended furlough, it's Friday. But I think Claire's asking a similar question. Will the local authority grants be automatically given to those who got it last time, or will they need to apply it? I think that will be probably down. You'd probably have to say you still need it.
Yes, I think you're probably going to have to apply again because these are new grants. So I think you're probably going to have to apply. And as I said, all we can do is get out what's out there at the moment. I will check it every day and I'll update everything every day. And if we have something that really important comes out before Friday, we'll come back and let you know. But keep an eye on the COVID Hub on our website, because I will put updates in there. I haven't done anything yet, but I will do them after today. And I'll also put those little slides. I'll get Alex to put the little slides up on there so you can see the slides that I put up today. But I will go away and I will try and put a few more bits in before I get them up there.
Susan Joyce here. We use a serviced office, Regis. Can we get our proportion of the rates allowance back? I mean, this was a problem before. I'm not sure that Regis would get the rates back anyway, depending on what their contract is. But I think you just pay a fee. The fact that it covers everything, they tell you what it covers, but I'm not sure it's proportional.
Local authorities have additional funds for businesses, and I think those are aimed at the businesses who don't pay rates. So there will be some funds, but it will be based on what the local authority think you will get. So as soon as that money is available, you might be able to get some more. This is the extra grants are based on the £20 per head. I assume it's based on the voters in the area, on the electoral rolls. So they're getting £20 per head, I think, of electoral register to give to other businesses who may not qualify for the normal business grants.
Dilip's come back on. He asked a little while ago about where were we? Let me just check what it was. He
This
said
was
it
the-
grants available for all businesses, or just those are closed. So he's now confirmed, just gone on to say, e.g., those
Yeah.
in tier 2.
Because at the moment there are no tiers, if you
Tier
think
2,
about it.
yeah.
It's all locked down. So the tiers were something that's come in depending on the level of closures, that those in tier 2, some businesses had far more restrictions than others, and those in tier 3 had to close anyway. So there are different grants, and now that everybody is closed down, basically, apart from those who can't go to work, who have to go to work or anything else, then there's a whole new ball game available. 0 hours contracts. This is from Catherine. Do we work out to use the average pay? They were furloughed, then back, now furloughed again. Do we ignore furlough pay when averaging, i.e. just use the actual hours worked? I think I'm going to have to come back to you on Friday on these calculations, because I need to go through and work out some figures for you. I think the current hourly rate has to be that as in place now, because I don't think we can use last year's anymore, but I might be wrong. I need to go and dig deep down into the data to see what's happening about calculating hourly rates, because it may be based on the current minimum wage, or it may be based on the rates that we were looking at earlier in the year. So again, I will try and get back to you as soon as possible. Jess asked, has HMRC updated the calculation site? No, I doubt if they have yet. They're still trying to get the information out. I would imagine that the little gremlins that work in the background are saying lovely, sweet things about the government while they frantically reprogram it all. So I think it'll be a few days before the calculators get updated. And Joe said, some employees have been working more hours since August than in March. Can the furlough be based on their higher hours than in March? The rule always was that you pay the higher of the average of the last 12 months or the current month. So if you work out, if the calculation remains the same and you go back over 12 months, you should go back over 12 months, I would think, from October, and work out your average, and then maybe look at November's income and see if that last November was higher than the average and take that. That's assuming that the calculations remain exactly the same as they did for flexible furlough. Let's have a look at the chat line, because we've got loads of questions coming in. Can you claim furlough? This is Julie Truelove. Can you claim furlough for an employee working notice? Yes, I think you can, because this is furlough, not job support scheme. So I would think, yes, you can. You can put them on furlough and then pay them for the period of their notice. However, what I would say is, unless they have another job to go to, I think you might have to look at whether that notice that has perhaps been given might be rescinded for a while. The thing is, the difficulty in this is if you try to put someone on redundancy and you now withdraw that redundancy notice to put them back on furlough, at the moment it's only for 1 month. And if we then go into the job support scheme, you can't claim for them anybody on a redundancy notice in the job support scheme, which at the moment is due to start back at the beginning of December. So I think it's going to have to be very careful what people do. And I think this whole notice redundancy period is going to be an absolute nightmare for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, Helen's just come back. Yeah, actually, Helen, thank you for the comment. She's come back to the maternity pay. For furlough, you have to be available work. But if you're on maternity, you're not available. I absolutely agree, Helen. And that was probably the answer I was trying to find, that I have a funny feeling that if you need to come back, you can't go back on maternity leave. So I've got a feeling it's an all or nothing, because if you've gone on maternity leave, you know what your income is going to be, that it's the 6 weeks at 90%, is then a minimum SMP after that, unless the employer chooses to top up. And therefore you're not available for work, so you perhaps shouldn't be on the furlough scheme. Thanks, Helen. I knew I was trying to get that out of my brain somewhere. Louis says, hello, do you have to pay furlough to an employee who would not come back into the cafe after we reopened and is on unpaid leave with 0 hours contracts? If they refused to come back to work and you had work for them, my personal view, and this is purely a personal view, is if I was that employer, I probably wouldn't take them back and furlough them, because if they didn't want to come back to work, unless there was a very, very good reason for not coming back to work. And I think as most businesses, particularly cafes that I've walked past or been into, have been extremely careful with the social distancing and the masks and everything, apart from the very early days recently. So if they didn't come back to work, I don't know. Don't know about that one, Garry.
No, I mean, we've said it several times. Any of these schemes can't be seen as a way of keeping everybody happy or doing things that you wouldn't normally do. I think it's there to assist the employer, to assist the employees, but in a proper way. You can't start bending the system. And it's like the one before. They were redundant. If I take them off redundancy now, can I now furlough them? Well, I don't. I think you've got to look at the moral judgment of that. I know it's horrible for people, but
I know
you've got to be able to say you did it properly.
And the problem is we don't know how long this extended furlough is going to last. It is only lasting while the lockdown is in place, because you see, if you think about what the Prime Minister said, he was hoping to bring the R number down by Christmas so that we could all have as normal a Christmas as was it ever going to be possible this year. But if the numbers don't come down, he's not going to stop the lockdown. And again, straight after Christmas, we might be back into lockdown to get the numbers back down again. But in the interim period, you're into the job support scheme, no redundancies, no nothing. So watch this space. Marie Benstead's coming and says, sorry, I missed the first 10 minutes. Can you please confirm the furlough arrangement November? It is 80%, Marie. It's the full 80%. So it's exactly as we were in August. So 80% paid by the government, but the employer paying the employers' NICs and pensions.
Yeah, I've been doing some reading, so I'm a bit lost as to which of these questions we're on. So I'll catch up.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I haven't been.
No, it's just that some people are just saying on social media that they can't see the government wanting to take away furlough before everybody's Christmas. And that again is speculative, but who knows? And yeah, we are this is supposed to finish 3 weeks before Christmas. Everybody has said right from day one they want people to be able to enjoy their family Christmas, but everything is on an absolute knife edge at the moment, and it's all guesswork, isn't it?
Very much so. There's one coming from Jeff that I didn't see. My client was making up the salary to 100% before. So under this new scheme, my client would be paying less, in that HMRC would be paying 80%. The employer can top up, Jeff. So if the employer wants to top up to 100% by paying the extra 20%, then they can do that. So hopefully they shouldn't be any worse off. I think that's slightly different.
Is he talking about it was 60%? He was paying 40%, so now he can reduce it back down to 20%. Is that what he's talking about?
I'm not sure.
No. But yeah, you can give
if
them
that needs a further answer, Jeff, then we'll chat about it afterwards, if that's all right. I'll deal with that one now.
Oh.
Joe's I've answered. Yes, Jeff has said the vote is in the House of Commons on Wednesday. So yes, so that is so that it can officially come into force for Thursday when the lockdown is. I presume holiday pay can still be claimed via the furlough scheme. Yes, it can. That's exactly the same. Nothing has changed, but don't forget that holiday pay must be paid at 100% by the employer, and you can't fund the holidays because they count as worked days. So if you have someone who is taking, say, 3 days holiday, you have to pay them the full 80% as if they were working. Then you could claim the balance of the week on the furlough if they're only taking 3 days. But that has
Jeff and Sarah both been on to say thank you very much, Jacquie. Yeah, look, she absolutely loves it. Come on, be honest. She's ICB through and through, and she loves bookkeepers. So, she'll burn the midnight hour quite a lot. So this is what Jacquie does, and this is what we love her for.
Oh,
well, it's been around for so long with us. But anyway, carry on.
I know, it's quite scary, isn't it? Because it was a long time before ICB started. We've known each other a very long time.
We have.
Yeah, back to pre-ICB days. Helen's come back and said, Helen's agreed with your comment. I think it smacks of a fiddle. I agree, Garry, morally. If they were redundant, they should stay redundant. And the other comment at the end. Thank you, Helen. Right.
If not,
let me,
catch up, I think.
right. Carol's come back. Will furlough be based on contracted hours or using the earnings for the same week last year if this is higher as in April? Again, it depends on what is your normal salary. So if overtime is part of your contractual salary, or is their normal salary that's paid on a fairly regular basis, and I think you include it in the calculations. So I think the furlough calculations are exactly the same. The only query I'm not sure about is whether it's based on the current wage, minimum wage, or whether it's based on last year's minimum wage, and I will try and get that answer for you for Friday. Oh, Peter, my client claimed for the first round of CJRS for his employees up to July. From August, he obtained a new employer registration as he changed entity from self-employed to an LLP. Can he now claim the new extended furlough scheme? Yes, he can, as long as he's got that RTI in by the 30th of October. So if he started in August, yeah, he'll be fine. Yeah, remember it's midnight on the 30th. Oh, Barry's come back. Regarding SMP, isn't it that maternity top-up can be claimed against furlough? I'm not sure, because as I think Helen said, somebody said, if you're on maternity leave, you're not able to work and you have to be available for work under the furlough scheme. It's just that they don't have any work for you. So if you're on maternity leave, you're not available to work. They can top it up, but I don't think they can claim it for furlough. But again, I have got that one down at top up. I have got that one down to look at. I will get an answer for you on Friday on that one. Does the worker still have to work a minimum number of hours before they can go on furlough in November on this new version of JSS? No, this is not JSS. It's not the job support scheme. It's the coronavirus job retention scheme. So we forget job support scheme for a while. It's as though CGRS never ended, but they've upped the percentage. So no, they don't have to work a minimum number of hours. They can work as much or as little, and if the businesses are closed down, then they'll claim it for the full 80% of their non-worked hours. So basically what the government is doing is it's paying 80% of the non-worked hours. Now that can be the full amount, or it can be a percentage of the week. So get those spreadsheets out again, folks. That's that one done.
Oh, moving about a bit.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to take out the ones that we've done. Get rid of those.
Terry says if a business is closed for a month, it only needs 2 months for employees to do 1,560 paid hours, 1,560 save hours, equals 780 per month compared to 520. I have a small cafe that this would be an issue with.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to come back to you on this one, Terry. I might, when I know, I might possibly give you a call, because I know you do quite a lot of cafes, so it might be interesting to get some perspective from you on that. So if you can leave that one with me, minimum wage for retention. Yeah, I certainly haven't seen anything about it. Right, let's deal with that one. That one's gone. That one we've done. Okay, just taken on a client, did not send letters varying the contract at the start of furlough. They also now have employees on flexible furlough and did not do the letters they should have. Do you have any advice for me? Unfortunately, that's sort of HR rather than payroll. So I don't know what the legal situation there is. Certainly under flexible furlough, if I remember back, they had to have this in written agreement, and the written agreement has to be available to be viewed by HMRC. So if these letters weren't in place, I'm not quite sure how you stand legally. And before I forget and do any more, can I just come back on Friday? one of our members, Alison, put up a question about a letter that she'd received from HMRC saying that they believed that they'd overclaimed on their CJRS and it had to be paid back. And I spoke to Alison this morning. We had a lovely long chat, and basically the letter that her client has received is the letter that's going out to an awful lot of businesses, and we agreed that we would use this as an example today. If you have clients who have had a rather disgruntled, strongly worded letter, shall we say, from HMRC, basically, if you are absolutely convinced you've got your calculations correct, it does give you various options to do. You can email them, you can fill out a form, you can ring them. Now, I know Alison rang them, and she and without doing anything against HMRC staff, she's spoken to 2 people at HMRC, and one she got an awful lot of help from, and one was there to sort of answer questions and take notes. But the second lady she spoke to on the line has said to her, it sounds as though she's done everything she could possibly have done, and they put a note on the client's record to say that they believe that everything is done okay, and she will be contacted. We think we may have possibly, or Alison may have possibly identified one very small area where perhaps the calculation wasn't right, and we think that might be why the client got the letter, but everything is fine at the moment. So if you do get that letter, you know you've got your figures right, get in touch with HMRC. Alison said she managed to ring them. She got on fairly well, got on fairly quickly. She did get quite a lot of help, and she does feel a lot happier about it now. So I did say I would pass that on to everyone, because these letters have been going out.
We have had another mention this morning about HMRC bogus letters. They do look very normal. Don't part with any money. Don't do that. You know, you have to be very careful.
Yeah.
Do it through the normal account system. And in fact, we've been scammed this morning as an institute. We actually had our accounts assistant who got an email supposedly from June saying, "Hi, can you tell me why this invoice hasn't been paid? He's chasing me." The accounts assistant, I won't give you a name because you might try it, sent back and said, "I don't know, I don't have this on the system." So June this other person, supposedly June, responded saying, "Oh, okay, I'll go back." And then she came another email saying, "Oh, by the way, what I need to do, I need to pay it. The invoice is on its way. Meanwhile, I'll cover it. Will you please make this payment of 5,750? This is the bank account, only they need the money. They're in a bit tough." Now, thankfully, the accounts assistant said, "Well, this doesn't feel right." So she checked with June, and it was nothing to do with June. But whoever it was knew who June was. She's the CEO. They knew the first name of the finance assistant, used that. They also used the sign off. Jane has a particular sign off that she does when she's talking internally. All of that, it was so clearly from her, but thankfully it didn't feel right. And the finance assistant actually noticed that when she responded to the email, it changed from June's email to one that was very, very close to it. So, you know, we're talking at the moment to action fraud to try and get this one stopped. But apparently these bank accounts are springing up all over the place, and by the time they've closed them down, people have drained out hundreds of thousands. So be very, very careful with it out there. Right, Jackie.
Yeah, can I just come back? There's a comment in from Kevin. Thank you, Kevin, who says we're talking about the SMP. If an employee receives enhanced maternity pay above the SMP, they can claim 80% of the enhancement under previous furlough. So expect the same under the extended furlough. That's enhanced, so it's not basic. So again, I think that's possibly a contractual thing there, Kevin, but thank you for putting that up. And if you can see it on the chat line, he has actually put a link up there. So thanks for that, Kevin. Okay, where are we? Questions? Oh, yes. The Welsh fire lockdown, we're apparently halfway through. Sorry, it does seem like an awfully long time since you went into lockdown, but it is only 1 week. So you've got this week is your second week. Welsh fire lockdown is 24th of October to the 9th of November. If an employee is not eligible under the old CGS, then their pay will be nil for the period 24th to the 31st. They should be eligible for the new CJRS from the 1st of November. Do we know how their reference pay and hours will be calculated? Main concern is national minimum wage. And I assume that means national minimum wage, Carla. under the old furlough scheme, if their wage was below the national minimum wage, then that was fine because they're not actually working. So the 80% will take them down below. Any new CJRs will be based on 2021. Right. And do we need to rework on the new national minimum wage? The answer is I need to check up on that, and I will try and get back to you with an answer for that on Friday or sooner if we can get it out to you sooner. But hopefully, I think I did say at the start, I wasn't sure what's happening about hourly rates and the dates of calculating it. So I will try and find something there. Can staff, Dilip's come back, can office staff still continue to come into work if they are not able to work from home, e.g. accountants when we are very busy? Yeah, the Prime Minister did say if you cannot work from home, then you can go into work. So if it's not possible for you to work from home, then it is still okay, I think, to go into work. But of course, you have got to watch out for all the standard social distancing, which is probably nothing more than you have now, because don't forget, schools are still open, key workers are still working. And if you cannot work from home, then I think it's okay to go into work. Nicola, yes, Wales is halfway through our 2-week lockdown. Paul Ingram, if the employee is able to work this week before the business closes on Thursday, I presume the furlough will start on Thursday and the employee would then get paid what they worked this week and the furlough pay. Yes, it's worked hours versus not worked out. Now, although the lockdown starts from Thursday, the furlough scheme is backdated to the 1st of November. So if they're working up until Thursday and then go into lockdown, that's fine because they will be paid for the hours that they've worked and furloughed for the hours that they're not worked. So it's exactly the same as it was. So I don't think that should be a problem. Hopefully that answers your question, Paul. Thank you for that. That one's done. Barry Peake said, I have 2 clients in service offices and both successfully claimed a proportion of the grants through their local authority. Yes, I think this was a later grant that came out earlier. So I would imagine that this is what the top-up grants to local authorities are, this £20 per person to give them. So hopefully you'll be able to do the same, Barry. Thank you for that. Caroline, do you think the 80% will be backdated for Northern Ireland? Now, this is what I was saying earlier, that certainly, I don't know whether the Northern Ireland was included in the discussion today. It was certainly interviewees from people from Wales and Scotland who are saying that the 80% should have been backdated till their lockdown. At the moment, no. Unfortunately, if you were in lockdown because your devolved administrations put you in lockdown, then you were into the old 60% and the employer has to top up 20%. I think this one is going to rebound round and round for a little while yet. So I think we have to watch this space. At the moment, it's not backdated for those that have locked down. And because the job support scheme, which has got the 5% contribution rather than the 20% contribution, wasn't due to start till the 1st of November and has now been put on hold. I don't even think, we haven't even got that to fall back on at the moment. So I think the answer to that is at the moment, no, but watch this space. Carol Shipley, afternoon, Carol. Apologies, been asked, missed the first 7 minutes. Well, tut, Carol, I don't know. What can I do with you? Can you still part-time furlough? Yes, you can. Yes, we're still into part-time furlough. So it's an extension of the August flexible furlough system. That's basically where we are.
I noticed you quickly skipped back Jeff there, where he said thank you, Garry and Jacquie, because I couldn't, but never mind. That one. All right, Jeff. I'm only here to keep the lines open. Don't worry.
Adrian Wright has said, for weekly paid employees, do we calculate 1 day at 60% and 6 days 80% for this coming week, i.e. Saturday? Up to the 31st, you're into the 60% and 60% government grant and 20% employee. And from the 1st of November, you're into 80% from the government. So it's basically, it's the 20% employers contribution that moves over to the government from the 1st. So they haven't backdated it. It's gone back to the 1st of November. So for those that were still being paid last week, if you've got a payday that goes over that period, then yes, you're going to have to split it. And Susanna says, I can't find anything online about the new local authority grants re full lockdown. Has any full guidance been published yet? Yes, the figures I've got at the moment are that the grants depend, I think as I said earlier, I'll get this up on the slides for you. The grants depend on the rateable value, up to £3,000 maximum on a full lockdown. For those who aren't eligible for that because of the rateable value, then there are some additional top-up grants available through the local authority, and I think you're going to have to apply to the local authority for that. Mary King, hi Mary. I have a client whose pay run is on the 5th of the month. They have 3 new workers and run a cafe and art centre. Currently, the 3 workers can't join the furlough scheme, but do you think the government will U-turn and make the RTI cut-off 5th of November? It's very unfair right now. Yes, I absolutely agree with you, because the 5th of November is obviously the last day for submitting that month's payroll, because it always, as you all know, it runs from the 6th of one month to the 5th of another month, not from the 1st to the end. However, what the government has said is that it has to give a cut-off date, and right from the start, the cut-off date has been the date it was announced. They did do one U-turn right at the start, so we hope they'll do another one again. If they do extend it, you're fine. If they don't, there's going to be no help for those employees at all. And it is very, very tough. And I think the reason that they do that with the best will in the world is that it does open things up to a huge amount of scam. Because if you suddenly get 5 days notice to put your salary claims in, you could put in, we know that there are people who are scamming the system who will then go through and put massive salary claims through, and hence skew the figures for what might be claimed. And I'm sure that's why they've done it. It's just very unfortunate that with no advance notice of these sort of things, that you just have got no time to put stuff into place. So at the moment, I'm really sorry, Mary, but they're the ones that fall through the cracks.
Right. Yeah, we got the one from Barry. A client I've taken on, he's just started, but all employees over on the start of October on a tube basis need to know how he can claim furlough for the new company in October. Well, tube means they are as if they were already employed by the taking
it's
over.
where a new tube is where a new company takes over all the existing rules and rights of the employees if the company changes. And I think as long as they have done that submission by the 30th of November, they should be fine. But Barry, if you need to have a chat about that, we can have a one-to-one on that, Barry, if you've got any queries on that one. Right, Susanna, this is an interesting one. Can employees who need to shield again be furloughed, even if work is available for them? I'm talking about people who are extremely vulnerable health-wise. I don't think they're bringing shielding back in. So they certainly weren't going to do it for the job support scheme, because they were very adamant that they weren't going to shield people again. So if they can't go into work and work is available for them, what happens if that work isn't done? Will they have to take somebody else on, and will they have work? Can they be furloughed? Right, can you leave it with me, Susanna? I'll try and get back to you. Judith, I have a client who was not eligible on the last furlough, has been working reduced hours since reopening. Can I base his furlough on last year's hours? I think we are still into the averaging of the last 12 months or the higher, because if the rules and regulations are as they were in August, that's what we were looking at. We were looking at a rolling basis of the last 12 months or the previous month, whichever was higher. So I think you've just got to have a look, and do the calculations. Again, sorry, I'm saying this all the time. Hopefully we will have answers to these on Friday.
Sarah Douglas says, always report fraud to your bank if you have clients fallen for it. We got 6,000 back for a client after they were not keen to notify the police or the bank out of embarrassment. That is how they get away with it. They caught the client during a vulnerable moment. Make sure your clients do not feel stupid, as many have fallen for the scam. Sarah, just goes to show you're not just a bookkeeper, you're an ICB bookkeeper. And again, as always, finger on the pulse. Well done, Sarah. The banks have fraud schemes to repay this type of fraud. Yeah, they do. And I can understand the embarrassment. You feel so stupid. But okay, good piece of advice there.
Now, Amanda has got an interesting one here. I processed my client's payroll on Friday the 30th for the 5th of the month, but did not send the RTI until today. Can we claim for the new employee? The answer, I'm afraid, is no. Under the current circumstances, I don't think you can. I will be interesting to see at what day they get paid, though, because even though your payroll date is the 5th, I have a funny feeling, if I remember my payroll rules, the RTI has to be submitted on or before the date you actually pay your staff. So the fact that you ran the payroll on Friday, if they haven't been paid yet and you haven't submitted the RTI, the rules as they stand at the moment is that your new employee will not be able to claim. Oh, Susanna's come back. They're not specifically bringing shielding back in, but they have said that people who are extremely clinically vulnerable should not go into work, but work from home if possible. Hence the furlough question, as it affects one of my clients whose employees had a double transplant. I agree with you. If they can work from home, they can be furloughed. That's not an issue. I think the problem is if they can't work from home and they're expected to go into work, can they be furloughed? Whereas otherwise you would have staff in at work. And that's the one I'm going to have to try and find the answer for you, Susanna. Okay.
I mean, that sounds to me like common sense has to take precedence there a little bit, and it doesn't always, but you know, somebody that's that vulnerable, that they ought to be covered somehow or other. But you know, let's hope sense does prove that.
And Susanna's just come back and said, sorry, I didn't make it clear the employee cannot work from home. Thanks, Jackie.
Yeah.
Susanna, I will look into it, and I'll perhaps give you a ring on that one. So making it out of people I'm going to ring over the next few days. It might be easier than doing it online. Barry, here all day tomorrow. You'll know the answer to your question. If you want to give me a call, I'm here tomorrow from about 9 o'clock in the morning.
Dorothy says Malon announces 19 million support fund for the taxi drivers and private coach and bus operators in Ireland. Do we know if there will be similar funding for English, Welsh or Scottish operators? Transport for London certainly had a big chunk of money from somewhere, I gather, and I know a lot of them are, but most taxi drivers are self-employed and therefore we haven't heard yet what's happening to the self-employed scheme, but I think it will be coming out as part of Wednesday's renegotiation, won't it?
I hope so, yes. I mean, I would imagine that they'll put the grant back up. They'll have to for self-employed because they have always matched it to the employed scheme, at least on the percentage one. So hopefully that it will go back up. Okay, I think I've covered everything on the chat line. It's 3 o'clock now, so we're into school run. So lots of people are having to leave to go to do the school run.
Yeah,
which is absolutely fine.
I think.
Olivia said, "Will there be a recording?" Yes, there will be. I'm not quite sure where it's going to be.
Obviously. Just onto some general sort of housekeeping, really. Nobody wants this to happen. It's happened. It is happening. We don't know when it's going to end or anything else. Obviously, look after yourselves. Be very careful. But please remember to talk to your clients. Don't wait for them to call you. Give them a call. And I know a lot of you have got a lot of clients, but, you know, yeah, just give them a call. Make sure they're okay. Bookkeepers have really endeared themselves to their clients even more than normal over this current epidemic, and we need that to continue. I've just had a note here from somebody called Dibs, not Debs, but Dibs, saying, how many of you remember the good old days when Corona was a bottle of pop? Well, basically, All of those with bad teeth, I presume. Anyway, yeah, so, you know, we are going to be here for you as ICB as much as we can. There are a lot of additional phone calls coming in, a lot more emails. I think we're getting to everything just about, but, you know, if you do get the engaged tone or the answer phone or something or other, please bear with us. We are trying. We've taken on a whole host of new staff, I think 6 at the moment, to try and help cope with this. And they're rushed off their feet. They're going through a bit of training, so they're probably a bit slower than some of the old hands that you've been speaking to for years. And then on top of that, we've had 2 people down who've been diagnosed with COVID or found positive with COVID. I think both of them are trying to come back to work today because they don't like sitting at home feeling sorry for themselves, and they don't have to go into an office, so they can do it. So they're popping in and out. But anyway.
Just going back through the questions, a couple that I missed. Joe says, you probably can't answer this, but I have a client who runs a climbing wall, so must close down. However, they have schools booked in who won't be closed. Can they open just for the schools? Will the local authority be able to advise? Well, I think you're going to, yes, I think the local authority should probably be able to give you an answer. My gut reaction is they're going to have to close because even though the schools themselves are open, that I know they are looking, depends on the age of the children, because I know they're now looking at older children, advising them to try to wear masks in class as well, which teenagers are going to hate. They have to wear the mask walking around. So my answer is I think they will have to close, Joe, because this is a blanket closure. But yes, do check with your local authority. I think that is all the questions. I have a list of things I need to look at, a list of people who I will ring or who are going to ring me about very specific questions. I will get the slides and an update hopefully by tomorrow up on our COVID. I'll update it. I'm going to go through the COVID hub and take off all the stuff that's no longer relevant, because there's an awful lot in there now that's been building up, I think, since March, Garry, and I think we ought to take off all the stuff that's no longer relevant to keep it relevant. Well,
we can do that, absolutely. Yeah,
I think I'll go through. Yeah, I'll go through and try to narrow down so that our COVID hub is not just a history of whatever's happened, it's what's happening at the moment. So there's an awful lot of stuff on there I think that can come off.
Happy with that. That's great. I'm sure Alex will work with you on that. He's anchoring today, but he'll be head of chop and change, so he can do that. Yeah.
I think I'm just going through. Oh, there's one in the chat line. Karen Gallagher. Good afternoon, Karen. My partner didn't receive any help with SAYS for the first time round. Will there be help this time? I think the answer is it's going to depend on the eligibility criteria, because we are still into the 18-19 self-assessment submissions. When we started, you had to have done your submission for the year 18-19, which was due by last January. Now, at the moment, this year's self-assessment for 19-20 isn't actually due until the 31st of January. Now, I don't know whether they're going to extend it so that it would make perfect sense to say that if you have submitted a 19-20 tax submission already, that you might be able to include that in the SAYS grant, but they haven't announced it yet. So watch this space. Sorry, I wish I could be more positive on some of this.
Yeah. They're going to keep coming in, I think, Jackie. So I think probably we need to.
I think we're there. I'm just going through. I think we've actually covered them all now, Garry. So I think I've got so much that I need to go away and do. Please go away and have a look at the stuff on gov.uk. There's a lot on there. I have to say, that's where I got most of my information from this morning. We'll get the website updated. I'll get the slides out to you, and
keep an eye open on your email inboxes, because if something else does come up and we think that we've got some useful information for you, we will come on at whatever notice is necessary. You know, everything is happening in Parliament on Wednesday. I'm not sure when, so it may be that it's still up in the air for a bit, but we will come on as soon as we hear anything different. Meanwhile, the helplines are all open to you as per normal. But so anyway, Fiona Budd says thank you to everyone for taking the time. Yeah, it's what we're here for. I'm really pleased that we've been able to do this, and as long as you keep tuning in, we'll presume we're doing something you want, and that's it. So great. Jackie, thank you very much for jumping in at the last minute there.
Okay.
And,
Joanne, we'll get a message out to you, Joanne, with your question.
Yeah, okay. That's just about subscribing to email, so nothing untoward. Thank you very much, everybody. Go careful out there. Be careful in yourself, because the last thing you want to do is catch this damn thing. And you know, we're all there, hopefully, later in the week to have a good chat again and get this all sorted. We are going to get through this sometime, but it's unbelievable to think that we actually closed down mid-March, and you know, we're still here and we're still thinking about it. We're all trying to resort our Christmases out and birthdays, and I've just done a first virtual funeral this morning for my great aunt, and very difficult. You know, at least when you go to a funeral and you see all these old people, you realise who they are. All I could see was people's back of heads and occasional side of heads. So I don't even know which bits of which members of the family were at the funeral. It was really quite sad. But we all have to deal with these things. We will cope. We will get through it. And to all our friends in the Philippines, I mentioned some of the things they've had going recently. Apparently yesterday, parts of the Philippines, 90% of the area was flattened because of a hurricane. So yeah, they don't even have houses this morning. So we all have to live with things. Let's get through it. Let's be careful. Let's make sure we can minimize it. Speak to you later in the week, everybody.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Jack.
Bye.
Cheers, everybody. Bye.